The silent darkness, the jungle was alive with whispers. The tall alien trees stood like shadows against the sky, and the thick mist curled around their roots like snakes. It was a night when even the stars above seemed distant, hidden behind clouds of smoke and fog. In this strange world, silence was dangerous, and silence meant that something was watching. She walked slowly, one step at a time, her boots pressing against the damp ground. Every leaf that crunched under her weight felt like thunder in the quiet night. Her eyes moved from shadow to shadow, yet she did not look nervous. Her breathing was steady, her shoulders calm. It was as if she knew the silence itself had a reason. Far behind her, hidden in the blackness between the trees, something moved. It was a predator, a beast from the deep jungles of this alien world. Its long claws curled as it crept low to the ground. Its yellow eyes glowed faintly, reflecting what little light escaped the moon. It was patient, it was silent, and it was certain this fragile human was prey. The predator had hunted many species before. It knew how to move without sound, how to wait for the right moment to strike. Many victims never even saw it coming. They were already gone before they could scream. But tonight, something was different. This human did not move like the others. She walked as if she could feel the beast's breath on her back. Her lips parted, and her voice, soft yet steady, cut through the darkness. "I know you're there," she said, not raising her tone, not even turning her head. "You have 3 more steps before I turn." The jungle seemed to freeze. The insects stopped their distant buzzing. The air grew still. Even the fog seemed to pause. For a long moment, nothing moved. The predator, hidden in shadow, tilted its head, confused. How could she know? It had been perfect. It had been silent. Yet she had spoken as if she had been waiting for it all along. She continued walking, her pace slow but controlled. Her hand brushed against the strap on her side where a hidden weapon rested. Her body language showed no fear, only patience. Each step she took forward was measured. Each breath sounded like a clock counting down. The predator narrowed its eyes. Its instincts warned it that something was wrong. But its pride refused to believe it. No creature had ever sensed it before, and none had ever escaped once it began the hunt. This human, this fragile figure moving in the mist, could not be different. It would prove her words meaningless. She moved closer to a clearing, where the moonlight spilled between the broken canopy of trees. Her shadow stretched long across the ground. The mist swirled around her legs like waves. Her ears twitched at every sound, though her eyes remained forward. 1, she whispered under her breath as she felt the beast shift behind her. 2, she said when she heard the soft scrape of its claws against stone. The predator felt a strange chill creep along its spine. It hesitated, its muscles tight, but then it pushed forward. It was a hunter, not prey. It would not be mocked by words. Slowly, carefully, it took another step, and another, its body lowered, ready to spring. She stopped walking. Her boots planted firm in the dirt. Her hand finally settled on her weapon. Her breath slowed. For a second, all was quiet again. Then she said the final word, clear and strong. 3. In that instant, she turned. The mist parted around her as if even the air obeyed her movement. Her eyes flashed with a strange light, cold yet fearless. Her hand gripped the weapon with confidence. The predator froze mid-step, its body caught in the glow of the moon. Its claws hung in the air, its yellow eyes wide with confusion. "You should have listened," she said softly. For the first time in its life, the predator felt uncertain. It did not understand how this human sensed its every move. It did not understand why she was not afraid. But its hunger and pride burned stronger than its doubt. With a roar that shook the trees, it leapt forward. Its body was a blur of muscle and teeth. The human did not flinch. She did not scream. Her weapon rose, her stance firm. The air crackled with tension as predator and prey became locked in a moment that would decide who truly hunted, who. The jungle itself seemed to hold its breath, and then the darkness swallowed them both, leaving only the echo of her warning. Predator's mind versus human instinct. The predator crouched in the shadows of the clearing, its eyes locked on the human. It had stalked prey across countless moons and forests, slipping silently through swamps, climbing through frozen cliffs, and waiting patiently in deserts where even the wind dared not whisper. Never once had it been seen before the final strike. Its body was built for stealth, its breath thin and controlled, its paws soft against the earth. To most creatures, it was death itself moving unseen. Yet here, in this strange jungle night, one human had broken the laws of its hunt, her calm voice echoing in its skull like a challenge it could not ignore. Its mind burned with confusion. It did not understand how this fragile creature could sense it. She had no extra eyes, no antennae, no natural claws or scales to shield her. She was skin and bone, small in stature compared to the beasts that roamed this world. And yet she had spoken as if she could see through the dark, as if her body itself was tuned to the rhythm of the hunt. The predator licked its teeth slowly, trying to taste her fear in the air, but there was none. There was only the steady beat of her heart, calm and deliberate, as though she was the hunter and it was the one being hunted. The woman stood her ground, unmoving, the mist curling around her legs like loyal spirits. Her hand held the weapon tightly but without tremble. Her face was steady, her gaze sharp as she stared into the shadows where the beast hid. It was as if she could see not with her eyes but with something deeper, something that reached into the silence and pulled truth from it. Her senses were alive in ways the predator could not imagine. She felt the shift of the mist, the faint scrape of claw against stone, the distant cry of a bird silenced mid-song. She read the absence of sound the way others read words. The predator growled low in its throat, its pride warring with its doubt. It wanted to rush forward, to tear her apart, to prove to itself that no human could ever see what it concealed. But that voice, that warning, kept replaying inside its head. 3 more steps before I turn. Such confidence could not be ignored. It was not the tone of a creature guessing. It was the tone of a hunter who already knew. That unsettled it. And for the first time in its long hunting life, hesitation crawled through its blood. It circled slowly, paws pressing into the damp earth. Trying to find an angle, its muscles tensed as it shifted through the branches. Its ears twitched, listening for the sound of panic. But she remained still, waiting. It could smell the metallic tang of her weapon, but behind that was something stronger. The raw scent of a being unafraid. That scent made its stomach tighten. This was not prey. It was something else. The human finally moved, only slightly, her head tilting as if she could hear the predator's thoughts. Her lips curled into the smallest hint of a smile, one that was not mocking but knowing. She whispered under her breath, her words soft enough to be carried by the mist, yet sharp enough to strike the predator's ears. "You're wondering why I can hear you," she said. Her voice had no tremor, no weakness, only certainty, and that certainty shook the predator more than any weapon could. In its mind, images of past hunts flashed, victims screaming, running, stumbling into its claws. None had ever spoken to it before the strike. None had ever stood so firmly when they knew death was only breaths away. This was different, dangerously different. It felt something unfamiliar rising inside its chest, a clawing sensation that made its muscles twitch. It took a moment to understand what it was. Fear. The beast snarled, trying to crush the feeling, trying to remind itself of its power, but the human's steady gaze kept breaking through. She shifted her stance, lowering slightly, weapon angled, her body positioned in such a way that she could move in any direction. Her instincts were guiding her like an invisible thread. She did not need to see the predator. She did not need to guess. She could feel it. She could sense the way the silence bent around its body. She could hear the pause in the wind when it tried to mask its step. It was not a gift. It was not magic. It was human instinct. Sharpened by generations of survival in hostile worlds, the predator's claws dug into the dirt. It could not comprehend this. For centuries it had been the perfect hunter. Its name carried in fear through the whispers of prey. But tonight, standing against this single human, it realized the truth. It was not the only predator in the dark. The woman took a slow breath, her voice cutting through the night once more. "Step closer if you dare," she said. Her words were neither loud nor sharp, but they struck with the weight of command. The predator's ears flattened, its eyes narrowing. For the first time in its life, it questioned whether this hunt would end as it always had, with blood and silence, or whether it had already stepped into a trap it could not escape. The turnaround. The clearing stood silent as if the entire jungle was holding its breath. The mist swirled lazily, carrying the scent of wet soil and broken leaves. The predator had circled, testing angles, testing patience, but the human never broke her stance. Her back was straight, her breathing slow, and her hand rested on her weapon with the ease of someone who had carried it for years. She was not a victim, lost in the woods. She was a figure carved from defiance itself. The predator crouched low, its body a coil of muscle ready to strike. Its mind roared with conflict, every instinct demanding that it leap and end this charade. Yet somewhere deep inside, doubt gnawed at it. This human had called its presence in the dark. She had counted its steps without ever looking, and her calm words had sunk into its skull like poison. It wanted to kill her not only for hunger, but to silence the unease she stirred within it. She tilted her head slightly, eyes narrowing as if she could hear the twitch of its muscles. The predator tensed, its claws flexing against the earth. She whispered softly, almost as if to herself, but loud enough for the creature to hear. 1. The sound cracked the stillness. Sharper than the snap of a twig, the predator's heart hammered. Its body flinched against the word, though it had no reason to. She shifted her weight, her boots scraping gently against the dirt. The mist wrapped around her like a cloak. Her breath came again, slow and deliberate. 2. The predator's jaw clenched, saliva dripping from its fangs as it tried to steady itself. Its body screamed to leap now, to silence her voice before the final word fell from her lips. Yet it waited, compelled by something it could not name, compelled by a force stronger than its hunger. The woman stopped, her body frozen in place. She drew one last deep breath and let the final word fall. 3. With that word, she turned with sudden speed, faster than the predator expected. The mist parted violently as her movement cut through the air. Her weapon was drawn, a sleek blade glinting silver beneath the moonlight. Her eyes locked on the beast's glowing yellow orbs, and for the first time the predator saw no fear. Only cold calculation. The predator hesitated, its body stalling mid-step. It had expected panic, a scream, or desperate scrambling. Instead, it found itself staring into the unbroken gaze of prey that refused to bow. For the first time its confidence cracked. Its claws dug deep into the earth as if anchoring itself, but the weight pressing on its chest was not her weapon. It was her certainty. Her words echoed again in its mind. 3 more steps before I turned, she had spoken prophecy, and now prophecy had come true. "You should have listened," she said, her voice quiet yet filled with a finality that chilled the air. The predator snarled, shaking its head violently, trying to shred the growing unease clawing inside. Its pride was too heavy, its hunger too deep. With a roar that sent birds scattering from the treetops, it lunged, its body blurred in speed, claws raised to shred, fangs wide to bite. The jungle trembling with its fury, but she was ready. Her feet shifted perfectly, her body lowering, weapon raised in flawless timing. Her senses guided her like invisible strings, pulling her in harmony with the predator's charge. She did not look at its claws or fangs. She felt the space between them, the silent gaps in the air, the subtle pull of the earth beneath its heavy leap. She did not need to see the beast. She already knew where it would land. Their clash was thunder without sound. Her blade flashed upward, slicing through mist as steel met fury. The predator's claw swung downward, tearing through bark and soil as it missed its mark by mere inches. Its roar shook the trees, but she did not flinch. She sidestepped, spinning into the moonlight, her eyes never leaving its form. Her every move was not wild survival, but precise choreography. The predator stumbled slightly, rage burning hotter than pain. It spun with a snarl, its tail whipping the ground. Its body towered over her, muscles twitching with primal power, but as it looked again into her steady gaze, it felt that creeping sensation return, that gnawing edge of fear it had never known. She had promised to turn on the third step, and she had done so with unshakable certainty. It realized with horror that her promises were not bluffs, but truths carved into reality itself. The clearing filled with the sound of its heavy breaths, her calm silence pressing back like an unyielding wall. In that moment, predator and prey stared at one another. But the roles were blurred. For though it had leapt with hunger, it now stood hesitating, and she, though human and fragile in form, stood unbroken, weapon glowing in her hand. The jungle itself seemed to lean closer, waiting for what would come. The moon above lit the scene in pale silver, fog curling like restless spirits between them. She tightened her grip, her voice steady as she whispered once again, "This is where the hunt changes." And for the first time in its life, the predator wondered if it had chosen the wrong prey. Clash in the shadows. The predator's roar tore through the clearing like thunder. Shaking the branches overhead, leaves rained down as the beast lunged again, its claws slashing the air with terrifying speed. Each step it took cracked the earth beneath its weight, its muscles coiled like springs of fury. The jungle came alive with echoes of its rage, yet the woman did not falter. Her stance was strong, her movements sharp, her gaze never breaking from the glowing yellow eyes that bore into her soul. She met its charge with precision. Her body flowed like water. Twisting and turning just before its claws could reach her, her blade flashed through the mist, slicing the air where the predator's hide should have been. Sparks of energy rippled as steel brushed against hardened scales. It was not a killing blow, but enough to leave a faint line of blood glistening on its side. The predator howled in fury, a sound so deep it shook the bones of the earth. But beneath the anger there was something new, a spark of disbelief. It was wounded, not mortally, but wounded all the same, and that had never happened before. The fight raged in a rhythm of chaos and control. The predator attacked with brute force, its strikes heavy and wild. Each blow meant to crush bones and tear flesh. The woman moved with instinct, every dodge timed perfectly, every counter woven with purpose. She was not faster in body, but she was faster in mind, reading the silence between attacks, feeling the vibrations in the ground before the beast shifted. She was guided by something older than training, something carved deep into the human spirit. The jungle became their arena. Trees shattered under the predator's swipes, roots ripped free from the ground as it lashed its tail in frustration. Mist scattered and curled back, wrapping the scene in a ghostly shroud. Every sound, the snapping of branches, the scraping of claw against stone, the hiss of her blade, echoed like a storm locked in shadows. To any watching from afar, it would seem like a dance between two forces of nature, one of raw power and one of relentless precision. The predator's mind burned with anger. It could not accept what was happening. Never before had prey endured this long. Never before had a fragile creature forced it to bleed. It tried to outmatch her with speed, lunging in unpredictable patterns, claws striking high and low in a blur. But still she evaded, still she countered. Her blade nicked its shoulder, grazed its thigh. Each cut was shallow, but each one carried weight, proof that she could touch what no one else had ever reached. Her heart pounded, but not with fear. It was steady, alive with focus. Every memory of training came back, every whispered lesson of her people rising in her thoughts. She remembered her father's words, spoken long ago in the forests of earth. The world speaks to those who listen. When the forest grows silent, trust your skin. It will tell you what your eyes cannot. She was listening now, not with ears, not with sight, but with the very blood that coursed through her. Her body moved before her mind commanded. She stepped aside before the claw fell. She ducked before the tail swung. It was not luck. It was instinct sharpened across centuries of survival. The predator faltered, frustration ripping through it like fire. Its pride was shattering, its certainty breaking. For the first time in its existence, it began to feel hunted. It snarled and lunged again. But its movements were growing sloppy, desperation bleeding into its strikes. Each roar was louder, each swing heavier, as if trying to drown out the truth building in its heart. Yet the more it raged, the calmer she became. Her body flowed with purpose. her strikes growing sharper, her steps more assured. The clash reached a peak when the predator leapt high, crashing down with the force of a falling boulder. Its claws tore a crater into the earth, dust and debris exploding outward. For a moment, the jungle itself seemed to shake, but when the dust settled, she stood beyond its reach, unharmed, her blade resting against her side. Her eyes glowed in the moonlight, steady and unbroken. The predator's chest heaved, its breaths ragged, its yellow eyes wide with a dawning realization that chilled its heart. It was losing. She lifted her blade slowly, her voice calm yet sharp. "You bleed because you ignored the warning," she said. Her words carried no boast, no triumph, only truth. The predator staggered back a step, its claws trembling. It had never been pushed this far, never been forced to retreat, but the weight of her presence bore down on it heavier than its own pride. The jungle around them seemed to pulse with energy. Every tree leaned closer, every shadow deeper, as if the world itself wanted to witness the moment. The beast, once the terror of these woods, stood battered and confused, and she, a lone human far from her home, stood unbroken, weapon gleaming like a shard of light in endless night. The clash was not over, but the balance had shifted, and the predator knew in its bones that this hunt was no longer its own. The human secret. The predator staggered back, its breaths ragged, its massive chest rising and falling like a bellows. Its claws were still sharp, its muscles still powerful, but something inside it was breaking. It could no longer deny the truth that burned in its mind. This human was different. Not prey, not weak, but something that defied every rule it had ever known. It shook its head, snarling, trying to drown the growing fear with rage, yet fear clung to its bones like vines. Unshakable and merciless, the woman did not advance. Not yet. She stood firm, her blade held low but ready, her eyes locked on the beast with unyielding patience. She could sense the shift in its heart. She could feel the tremor of doubt in its steps. Her instincts told her that victory was close, but she also knew this was not only a fight of claws and steel. It was a battle of wills, a clash of pride and spirit. She breathed slowly, her chest rising with steady rhythm, her mind focused not on fear but on memory. Images from her past surged forward like flames in the dark. She remembered her childhood on Earth. Long before she walked alien jungles and faced creatures born of nightmares, she remembered sitting by a fire in the forests with her father, the smoke curling toward the stars while his voice wove lessons into the night air. He had been a hunter, not of beasts alone, but of silence, of knowledge hidden in the world around them. He had told her stories of wolves that could vanish in the snow, of cats that could step between shadows without sound, and of men and women who had survived by listening not with ears, but with their very skin. Her father's words returned to her now, clear as though he stood beside her. When the forest grows silent, listen with your blood. When no bird sings, when no leaf stirs, when the world itself holds its breath, trust the storm that rises in your skin. It will tell you what your eyes cannot. She had listened as a child. She had practiced through years of hardship. And now, in this alien place, she carried that ancient gift. It was not magic. It was not chance. It was the inheritance of a species that had learned to fight in the dark long before it touched the stars. The predator circled again, its body low, but its eyes betrayed hesitation. It was trying to understand, trying to calculate why this small creature moved with such certainty. It thought of the countless species it had devoured. None of them had ever shown this kind of awareness. They had run, they had screamed, they had prayed, but they had never stood calm in the shadow of death. This woman was different, and the predator realized the difference was not her weapon, nor her speed, but the way she carried silence itself inside her. She took a slow step forward, not aggressive, but deliberate. Her blade gleamed faintly in the pale moonlight. Her face remained calm, and her voice, when it came, was quiet yet filled with unshakable strength. "You think the jungle hides you," she said, "but silence betrays you. Every step you take, every pause you make, I feel it, I hear it, I know it." Her words were not for taunting. They were a truth spoken like a law of nature. The predator's ears twitched, its heart pounding against its ribs. It wanted to deny her claim, but deep within it knew she was right. The memories of her training rose sharper now. She recalled nights when the forests of Earth were filled with predators of their own. Wolves circling, eyes gleaming in the dark. She had learned then that fear was a weakness only if you bowed to it. She had learned to let fear sharpen her, to use it as a compass pointing toward survival. That was the secret humanity carried, a secret no beast in this jungle could understand. They did not fight despite fear. They fought because of it, letting it guide their instincts until even the unseen could be felt. The predator lunged again, but this time its strike lacked the clean certainty of earlier. Its movements were betrayed by hesitation. It struck down with fury, yet she was already moving. Sliding past its claws, her blade flashing to carve a deeper cut across its flank. The beast roared, its blood scattering across the mist, steam rising where it touched the ground. Its fury was real, but its pride was breaking. Every wound was proof of her words. Every failed strike another reminder that it was no longer in control of this hunt. She did not cheer, she did not gloat. Her face remained calm, her heart steady. Her purpose was not victory for glory, but survival for truth. Humanity had always been underestimated, and tonight she carried that truth like a banner in the dark. She whispered again, her voice steady as stone. "We are not blind in the silence. We are not deaf in the dark. We are not prey." The predator stopped for a moment, its massive chest heaving, its claws dripping with dirt and blood. Its eyes flickered with something alien to its nature. Not hunger, not rage, but a raw, unsettled fear. It had faced countless creatures, but none had ever turned its own instincts against it. It now realized that this was the human's true weapon, not the steel in her hand, but the unseen gift buried deep within her spirit. The jungle was still, the mist curling like smoke from a dying fire. The predator stood wounded and uncertain. The woman stood unbroken and steady. Between them lay the secret of her kind, an ancient inheritance whispered through generations. The night was not over, but the battle was no longer the same. For now the predator knew, deep in its bones, that this human carried something far more dangerous than any claw or fang. The ability to turn silence itself into a shield and a weapon. Predator's fear. The predator stood in the clearing, its chest heaving, its body marked with shallow cuts that burned with every movement. Its once smooth breathing was broken now, uneven and harsh, a sound that betrayed the weight of the fight pressing down on it. The great beast had always believed itself untouchable, a shadow that moved faster than sight, a death that came before awareness. But here it stood, face to face with a human who refused to bend, who refused to collapse beneath its fury, and that truth clawed into its heart more painfully than her blade ever could. The jungle around them seemed alive with silence, an oppressive, waiting silence that mirrored the predator's hesitation. The mist drifted through the air, wrapping the trees like winding spirits, and the moonlight filtered down in silver strands that made the human appear almost otherworldly. Her form was small compared to the towering beast, yet she carried herself with such steadiness that it felt as though she was the one commanding the night. The predator shifted its weight, its claws digging into the earth, but each step it took forward felt heavy, as though unseen chains were dragging against its limbs. Fear was an alien thing to the predator. It was not supposed to feel such a weakness. It was born of dominance, its species crafted through centuries of survival at the top of the food chain. It had never been hunted, never been challenged. Its existence was built on the certainty that every creature it set its eyes on would fall before it. Yet this human had shattered that certainty. She had stood unflinching where others ran. She had spoken with a calmness that cut deeper than claws. She had struck not with desperation but with control. And now the predator's mind screamed with a realization it could not silence. She was not prey. The woman breathed slowly, her blade still gleaming with faint trails of blood. Her eyes never left the beast, her stance firm. She had felt the shift in the air. She had seen the tremble in its muscles, and she knew the truth. The predator was afraid. She did not need to shout or threaten, she simply existed in her unshakable calm, and that was enough to shake the creature before her. For humanity had always carried this gift, not the strength of claws or the hardness of scales, but the power to stare into the abyss and refuse to bow. The predator roared, a sound meant to reclaim its pride. The earth shook beneath the force of its voice. Birds scattered from distant branches, and the mist rippled outward like waves. Yet, even as it roared, its voice carried something unsteady, a note of desperation buried in the thunder. It lunged again, claws swinging wide, but the woman moved before the strike could land, stepping into the shadows, twisting past its attack with the grace of someone who had rehearsed this moment in 1,000 silent forests. Her blade lashed out, carving another line across its flesh, deeper than before. The beast stumbled, its massive frame crashing against a tree, bark exploding outward as it tried to steady itself. Blood dripped freely now, staining the earth beneath its feet. It glared at her, eyes blazing with rage, but behind the fire was the undeniable shadow of dread. It could not understand how this was happening, how this fragile human could force it into retreat, how each attempt to dominate only left it more broken, more exposed. She whispered softly, her voice carrying across the clearing like a law of nature. "You feel it now, don't you?" she said. "The weight you have never known, the silence inside you turning heavy. That is fear." Her words did not mock. They did not gloat. They were spoken as truth, and the predator could not deny them. Its body trembled, its instincts screamed to run, yet its pride chained it to the fight. It tried to rally, to summon the strength of its kind. It struck again and again, claws tearing earth, tail lashing through trees. But each strike was slower than the last, each roar weaker, and each movement betrayed by hesitation she evaded with ease, not because she was faster, but because she was certain. She was guided by instinct that had been sharpened for generations, and the predator could not compete with that. Its greatest weapon, silence, had become its greatest weakness, and she had turned it against it with terrifying ease. The jungle bore witness to the shift of power. No longer was the predator the terror in the dark. It was wounded, slowed, and afraid, and the human stood tall, her presence unbroken, her will unshaken. For every step the beast took backward, she took one forward, closing the space between them not with haste, but with inevitability. It felt trapped, not by her blade, but by her certainty, by the weight of a spirit that refused to yield. The predator's mind screamed with conflict. Its pride demanded it fight. Its body begged it to flee. It had never known such chaos inside itself, never known the sharp edge of fear slicing through its thoughts. Yet here it was, trembling in the shadows of a jungle it once ruled, staring at a human who had turned its own hunt into a nightmare. And in that moment, as blood dripped onto the roots of ancient trees and the silence pressed heavier than ever before, the predator understood a truth it had never wanted to face. This was not its hunt anymore. This was hers, humanity's message. The clearing was thick with the smell of blood and soil. The mist hung low, wrapping the trees like a shroud, and the moonlight cast its pale glow on the battlefield. The predator's once towering frame now trembled with every breath, its chest rising and falling in desperate rhythm. Wounds marked its body, shallow but many, each one a reminder of its failure. Its pride was broken, its certainty shattered, and for the first time in its long existence it knew what it meant to stand at the edge of death. The woman remained steady, her blade held firmly at her side. Her shoulders did not sag, her eyes did not soften. She looked at the creature before her, not with hatred but with a quiet strength that burned brighter than the moon. She could see the fear inside it, the way its muscles twitched with hesitation, the way its eyes darted like a trapped animal. She knew she had already won. The hunt was no longer about survival. It had become a lesson. She stepped forward slowly, her boots pressing into the damp soil, each sound echoing louder than the beast's roars had before. The predator flinched at her movement, its claws scraping the ground as if it wished to retreat, yet could not. The human's presence pressed against it like a weight, a force heavier than any wound. She raised her blade higher, the silver edge glinting with light, and her voice, calm and steady, cut through the silence. "This is where it ends," she said. The predator tried to muster one final roar, one last desperate strike to reclaim the pride that bled away with its strength. With a guttural snarl, it lunged, but the movement was slower now, its body betrayed by exhaustion and fear. The woman moved with precision, stepping aside, her blade slicing clean through the mist. The strike landed true, cutting deep into the predator's chest. The beast let out a cry that shook the trees, then collapsed heavily onto the earth. Its body twitched once, twice. Before finally going still, the jungle grew silent again. But this silence was no longer the predator's weapon. It was her victory. She stood over its fallen body, her breath slow, her grip firm. She looked down at the creature not with celebration but with solemnity, for she knew this would not be the last. The galaxy was filled with hunters, with beasts and empires that saw humanity as weak. As prey to be claimed, tonight had been one predator, but tomorrow there would be more. She sheathed her blade, her eyes lifting to the sky where distant stars shimmered faintly through the mist. From her belt she pulled a small recorder, its surface scratched from years of use. She activated it, her voice steady and unyielding, carrying across frequencies that would travel far beyond this jungle. "To those who hunt us," she said, her words strong, "remember this night. I warned you of 3 steps, and I turned as promised. We are not blind in the dark. We are not deaf in the silence. We are not prey. We are human, and we endure." Her words hung in the air like an oath, a message etched not just in sound, but in spirit. She knew others would hear it, allies and enemies alike. Some would laugh, some would doubt, but others, predators across the stars, would feel the same cold dread that now lay in the heart of the fallen beast. The legend of humanity's defiance would spread, whispered through shadowed jungles, carried across alien worlds, told in the darkest corners of the galaxy. She looked back one last time at the predator's body, its yellow eyes now dim, and she gave a single nod. Not in respect to the beast, but in respect to the lesson it had provided. Then she turned, walking back into the mist, her figure fading into the silence she had mastered. The jungle swallowed her steps, but unlike before, the silence no longer belonged to the predator, it belonged to her. As the night deepened and the stars wheeled overhead, the clearing remained empty save for the lifeless body of the once mighty hunter. And though no living creature spoke, the jungle itself seemed to whisper, carrying her message like a sacred truth. Humanity had spoken, humanity had endured, and the galaxy, whether ready or not, would remember.